Alright, welcome back for another replay cast, playing as the Warriors of Chaos again. This time I'm coming in with Kholek Suneater as my Lord. Got 3 squads of Chaos Warriors up on the front lines, and then 3 squads of Chaos Warriors with halberds. And I've got a Chaos Sorcerer of Metal as my caster. So my opponent playing as the Empire, and we are on the Death Pass map, has got Boris Todbringer as his Lord. He's got Spearmen with shields on the flanks, Swordsmen in the middle, great swords behind them, and then a squad of spearmen holding on the Sunmaker along with a Witch Hunter. And his caster is a Gray Wizard, and it looks like he's just bringing Pit of Shades. No surprise there. Alright, so I'm going to fast forward things on the advance. So at first I was going to go for all 3 points, thinking that he was going to have a ton of artillery. Then I realized that he just had 1 piece of artillery, and so I'm converging on point 1, got a squad of halberds going off to point 3. You may notice this is something I did in the last matchup if you saw that. Sending the halberds out to a point by themselves if the enemy isn't approaching it, that way they can hold against a unit with pace like cavalry or something like that. And then the rest of the guys are going to work together on another point. So Sunmaker firing in on the Chaos Warriors. And doing a pretty good amount of damage on the approach. Part of the reason I brought Kholek Suneater as my Lord was I figured the Empire was going to have a large combat Lord, and whether it was Boris, Todbringer, whether it was Karl Franz, or whether it was, I think there's a guy, Volkmar the Grim, who's on a big mount. It almost looked like a siege tower. I figured having an anti-large would be nice, and also this would help me fight out of cavalry spam and things like that if they're able to jump on top of my Lord, because maybe I micro him and get him into an area that he doesn't want to be in. Having the mass, having the anti-large and whatnot will help him deal with that. So Boris jumping on top of some Chaos Warriors. I had this squad originally running over here, but I moved them to go after the Spearmen. It looks like they might get intercepted by these Empire Knights. But my thought process was instead of jumping on top of the Swordsmen, I'd rather take out the Spearmen, so that my cavalry and whatnot can move a little more freely and get on top of artillery and whatnot. But unfortunately, he intercepted me with the Empire Knights. Got the, what is it called? The Lord of the Storm coming down on top of that squad of swordsmen in the back. Pit of Shades from my opponent going down on the Chaos Warriors. He's got some Empire Knights coming in as well. You see, I brought some Chaos Warhounds over here on the flank. I was trying to chase down these Outriders. I did not see him bringing in the Empire Knights over here, so he interrupted my Warhound chasing over here. And my intention originally was to go through the woods, get around on top of the Sunmaker, but he intercepted me, so not a big deal there. You can see my opponent's pulling ahead on the gold value, but not by much. Still very early in the game. Kholek is going to be looking to jump on top of Boris Todbringer. One thing to keep in mind is this guy does have a little bit of regen. So yeah, Midland Runefang. So it looks like there's no what we should call it, condition for his regen to get in action. You can see Kholek is actually doing a pretty good amount of work on this guy already. He's about at a third of health, maybe a little bit more than that, but him and my Chaos Sorcerer are doing some damage in the front lines. My infantry are getting done away with pretty quickly. And I've got the Chaos Warriors of Khorne with dual weapons on the way in, but they just got smashed by the Sunmaker. This thing is causing me some serious problems. The damage values are getting a little bit closer. I'm taking some good trades. A lot of the damage I did is probably on Boris, so miscast on the Pit of Shades from my opponent there. Chaos Trolls are starting to run. One thing I'm starting to notice is that the Chaos Trolls, you really want to make sure that you have them near your Lord or near someone with the Encourage ability. That's something I'm going to have to try to pay more attention to. I probably mentioned that I'm trying to keep an eye on these guys when I'm using them in my roster, but it's so easy for me to forget this type of stuff as I'm playing. Chaos Warhound's running over on the point 1. My idea was get on top of point 1, capture that, put some more pressure on the Sunmaker. This thing's almost out of ammunition, actually. My opponent's got some more Empire Knights coming over, and he was doing a pretty good job of making sure he was matching cavalry to Warhounds. And the Warhounds don't have good armor piercing or anything like that, so something to keep in mind. Excuse my voice. I'm on day 4 of a cold/fluish thing, and I'm feeling I'm working my way out of it here. So this should be the last day that I'm having this dry throat and whatnot. But Outriders with grenade launchers, getting some shots in on the Chaos Warriors with halberds, so they're going to start approaching, trying to apply some pressure on them. Chaos Warhounds as well, bringing some pace on the field. You can see the Chaos Warriors of Khorne with the dual weapons are shredding these spearmen, even though they took a lot of damage on the approach, getting some good damage in there. More Chaos Trolls with armor on the way. I almost wonder if I could have saved some money and brought some of these guys with less armor, but I had no way of telling how much firepower my opponent was going to bring in. I wasn't sure if he was going to bring crossbows. Wasn't sure if he was going to bring in, handgunners or anything like that. So Chaos Sorcerer Metal over here. I've been casting Galena's, what is that called? Gehenna's. How do you pronounce that? Gehenna's Golden Hounds. I've been casting that on top of the infantry blobs as they try to swamp him down. Kholek still chasing around Boris. You can see he's getting closer to his healing cap. So for people who aren't as familiar about this game, a lot of units that do have some kind of health replenishment ability or something like that have a healing cap on them. And I think all units have a healing cap of some sorts on them. But basically what it means is that if you have a passive regen like this guy does, you can see he's regenerating 0.2% of his health, I think per second. Yeah, per second. Constantly. Some guys might get a heal casted on them by a spellcaster or something like that. There's a limit to you doing that, so that way you can't just bring a super powerful single monster and then just spam heals on him all match and he just never fucking dies. So good game mechanic there. This is just a really well thought out game, pretty good balance wise and whatnot, and just an awesome strategy game. So anyways, Boris jumping on top of my Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. I brought the throwing axe variant because I wanted them to be able to help out against the Lord, against the heavy cavalry and things like that. You can see these guys have pretty good pace, 86 speed, 78 on Zittler's Reichsguard, so this is Regiments of Renown Reichsguard cavalry, so high armor, shielded, pretty good combat stats. Somewhat, I want to say this might be a little bit low weapon strength for heavy cavalry like this, but I'm still learning kind of the balance of the different weapon stats and whatnot, so either way, these guys have pretty good survivability, it seems. I actually didn't realize that they're anti-infantry, so Kholek and the Chaos Trolls fighting here in this blob. Got some aspiring champions coming on the field. This is a unit I really want to figure out how to make work. Mostly just because they look badass. So you'll find that some of my builds are not going to be optimal. My intention is not to be like the most optimal, playing everything perfect in this game. I like to have fun with trying out new units. I like to have fun with trying out casters or lords of magic that people normally don't use, or spells that people don't normally use, and things like that. For me, that's the big fun of the game, is figuring out what is not being done and trying to find out how to make it work. So that is gonna result in losses pretty occasionally. Not that it's the only reason I'm not performing as well as other players many times. I still have a lot to learn in the game regardless, even if I was playing with professional type builds and whatnot. But you can see my opponent's pretty far ahead in the value points. I am winning on the victory points though, so that's the key for domination matches. Now, Empire Knights were able to catch up to the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. Got some Chaos Warriors with halberds coming in. I mistimed this. I was trying to get these guys right behind this summoning point, and I think because I had a camera angle like this, I thought the halberds were going to jump from the portal right on top of the Empire Knights, but fortunately not the case, so I wasn't able to trap them up the way I wanted to. Got some standard Chaos Warriors heading over this way, but unfortunately for me, Outriders with grenade launchers coming over this way. I am actually very surprised to see that these guys are not, they don't have more armor-piercing explosion. For some reason I thought that would have been the case, but they're dealing pretty good damage either way to my infantry. Another squad, Outriders with grenade launchers, getting some shots off on the Chaos Warriors with halberds. One thing I want to note, my Marauder Horsemen getting caught by the Empire Knights is something that probably should not happen. I probably could have left skirmish mode on and that wouldn't have happened. I took it off of them because they were potentially going to be running out of situations I didn't want them to. I wanted them to get close and be able to throw some axes in against Boris. I wanted them to get in close and throw some axes against the Empire Knights, but I kind of mistimed that and whatnot, and it didn't work out well for me. See, I got another squad coming in, wrapping around this side of this Empire Knights. Again, trying to use their armor piercing value against high armor targets. 110 armor on these Empire Knights. So these Warhounds were basically summoned in to intercept them from getting a rear charge on these Chaos Warriors. And now these Marauder Horsemen are going to help these guys out because these guys will get shredded by the Empire Knights in standard combat. So Kholek starting to go a little bit low on health. You can see Boris is actually pretty low himself, but he's close to his healing cap. He might actually be at his healing cap at this point. So he's at 2,100. Yep, he's at his healing cap. So my opponent's taking 0.3. They were able to use some of their mobility to get my halberds and whatnot taken off of there, and the reinforcements I sent off as well. And you can see my opponent's starting to get ahead on the victory points. And at this point, he's about 3,000 points ahead on value. I don't have healing, and he has probably, I would guess he's gotten like 1,000 points worth of healing on Boris. I don't know how much he costs, but I kind of just guesstimate stuff based on how I'm seeing units perform in the match. And so you could basically add another 1,000 on the gold value because this guy's health is regenerated. Or maybe I should say you could take 1,000 away from the gold value of damage that I've done. So because of that, I'm going to lose this match. I start to realize this in a little bit. You can see, just looking at the field, how many guys he has on the field. 15 to 6, 15 to 7. He's ahead in value. He's close to me in supplies. I couldn't know that during the matchup, but I kind of had a sense just based on what was going on here. And so I conceded. So well played to my opponent. That was a fun matchup for me. I did feel I was getting torn apart by those cavalry. So that's something I'll have to think about is how do I deal with them? I honestly did not want to bring, there's an anti-large unit. It might be Hellstriders of Slanesh. I can't remember. It might be Seekers. I think it's Hellstriders, but regardless of whatever unit it is, I didn't want to bring them because I thought that their lack of armor piercing was going to make them bad traders against the Empire Cavalry. If I get this matchup again, I might have to try them out. But I'll have to look around at what other unit builds I could use against the Empire. Part of the reason I brought Chaos Warriors with their armor was I thought there was going to be more shooting, which there was not. And I ended up just paying the Sunmaker and the artillery and even Boris by doing so. I think if I brought standard Marauders, I would have worked out a lot better for me. Either way, let's take a look at the value. So Kholek, just putting in work. Look at that, 4,400 damage. My Chaos Sorcerer Metal did not do good. The Gehenna's Warhound spell was doing okay. I think I probably should have saved it for using against great swords. Usually you can't get those cats off on cavalry, so the value just going on a swordsman and spearman was not really helping me too much. And my mindset with trying to pick off some of the spear infantry and whatnot, it didn't really make sense, honestly, in hindsight. I didn't have a bunch of cavalry or anything on my roster that I needed to move around and jump on top of stuff. Warhounds are infantry size, so it wasn't even like it was a big problem for them. My Chaos Warriors with halberds didn't get to do too well. Only one squad of them put in some pretty good work, but the rest of them didn't get much done. These guys got shredded by the artillery and the infantry, particularly the great swords, and Boris jumping in there as well. Trolls didn't do great. Aspiring Champions and Marauders with dual weapons didn't do great. None of my Warhounds did great. So good play by my opponent. I will say he really used his cavalry and stopped me from doing some of the stuff I wanted with my Warhounds. And so good on him for that. So Boris, this dude turned into like the Prince Sigvald of the Empire for me. I was tracking this dude, trying to stop him, thinking that he was playing a big impact on the match, and he actually did almost no damage. So that's kind of funny. So I'm going to keep that in mind next time I play this. And he also has the same kind of thing going on as Sigvald, where he's got this passive regen. Sigvald's, I think, is conditional. He might have to be fighting or something like that for it to play in. But either way, Sunmaker, pretty good value. Grey Wizard, okay value. Great Swords didn't do as much as I thought they would have. Witch Hunter was probably just getting shots off on Kholek. I would guess that's where he got his value from. Standard Infantry not doing anything crazy. Sometimes Reichsguard, nothing crazy. Empire Knights pretty consistent other than this squad. Grenade launchers, these guys did work. I think this is just another example of the Chaos Warriors that I brought paying off for my opponent as opposed to me. Because these big explosive rounds on these tightly packed, somewhat expensive infantry gave these guys a lot of value. And outside of that, nothing else special to look at. So, lessons learned. Well played to my opponent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.